Out on the edge of Red Valley, where the wind drags dust across miles of empty land, a tired cowboy rode home, expecting nothing but another quiet night. He didn't know a single lost ring in the dirt was about to change the shape of his life. And he definitely didn't expect the woman searching for it to joke that whoever found it would earn her as a wife. The sun was sliding behind the jagged ridge west of the flats when Adam Mercer guided his weary horse toward the ranch. Evening light stretched long and low, smoothing the hard lines of fence, posts and sagebrush until the whole valley looked dipped in bronze. The horse's hooves thudded in a slow, familiar rhythm, stirring loose soil that drifted behind them in thin, ghost-like trails. Adam had been to the trading post for wire, lamp oil, and a new rasp for the horse's hooves. He liked being home before dark. Chickens shut in, gates checked, barn locked. Routine kept the world quiet, predictable. It gave him a structure people no longer did. Years back, trouble in town had taken his brother and whatever place Adam once had among others. He never explained the whole story, and nobody dared ask twice. Since then, he kept to dry land where conversation wasn't expected and silence didn't feel like a failure. His goals had narrowed to something simple: keep the ranch standing and keep other people's problems off his doorstep. As he rode into the yard, movement near the water trough caught his eye. A woman knelt in the dirt, palms pressed to the ground, sifting through packed soil with careful, desperate focus. Long black hair hung forward, dust clinging to the ends. Her dress carried beadwork and fringe, made for travel, not ceremony. She didn't look injured, but exhaustion pulled at her posture, the kind that came from walking too far while staying alert the whole way. Adam stopped a short distance off and let the horse settle. He watched in silence, measuring the situation the way a man alone learns to do. People came to ranches for reasons: food, shelter, sometimes trouble. She didn't match any pattern. She wasn't begging. She wasn't hiding. She was searching like the ground itself owed her something. When she finally looked up, her eyes met his without flinching. Guarded, steady, she didn't scramble to stand or reach for a weapon. She just breathed slow and controlled, like someone who knew how to hide fear even when it burned hot under the ribs. Her voice came low and dry. She said she'd lost a ring. Then, with a strained attempt at humor that didn't quite land, she added that any man who found it would earn her as a wife. The joke felt like a shield thrown up too fast. Adam didn't smile, but he understood the tone. People pretending things weren't as bad as they were. He loosened the reins, swung down from the saddle, and walked toward her, boots pressing into the dirt with steady weight. He crouched nearby, leaving space between them. Her gaze flicked to his hands, measuring intent. He didn't touch her or question her. He just placed his fingers on the ground and began moving loose dirt aside, deliberate motions. Slow. He didn't have a reason beyond the tightness he'd heard in her voice, a note he recognized from carrying his own losses too long. She studied him while he worked. Her thoughts raced behind a still expression. Was he expecting payment? Deciding if she was worth trouble. She'd left a hostile camp 2 days earlier when tensions turned dangerous. Food enough for one more night. No knowledge of which ranchers or tribes in this region might offer help or harm. The ring belonged to her mother. The last piece of a life she'd already lost once. Dropping it in the dust had felt like losing the final thread tying her to anyone she'd trusted. Adam brushed aside gravel and hard clumps of soil, listening without looking like he was listening to her breathing, the shift of her weight, the edge of fear she was fighting to hide. Minutes passed. Then his fingertips struck something cool. He pinched it gently from the dirt and lifted a thin silver band into the fading light. Her body went rigid, breath stalled like she'd been struck. Adam didn't step closer. He held the ring out on an open palm at a distance that asked nothing. She reached slowly. Her hand shook once before she took it, staring down as if she had to make sure it was real. Adam stood in an unhurried motion and nodded toward the trough, offering water without words. She hesitated, not from lack of thirst, but from long experience that kindness came with terms. When he stepped back farther, the hesitation eased. She cupped water into her hands and drank in small, careful sips, the cold easing the burn in her throat. Adam gathered a few pieces of wood and built a modest fire in the yard. He didn't tell her to sit, didn't ask for anything in return. He simply worked, as though sharing warmth with a stranger required no ceremony. She weighed her options, legs trembling from fatigue. She knew night cold on open ground could finish what hunger had started. But staying near a stranger carried its own risks. She watched his posture by the fire, shoulders slightly hunched. A man always prepared for trouble, but never inviting it. He didn't stare, didn't press. His stillness felt safer than forced hospitality. She moved closer to the fire's outer edge and sat. Warmth reached her slowly, easing tight muscles. Her fingers brushed the ring again and again, making sure it hadn't vanished. Adam tore a strip of dried meat and set it nearby. She glanced at him, unsure if conversation was expected. He just watched the flames. Her breathing slowed for the first time in days. She stayed alert, but the constant edge of panic loosened its grip. Silence stretched between them, not strained, not empty, just shared. Coyotes cried somewhere beyond the fence line as the sky deepened from orange to indigo. Adam added another log. She shifted a little closer. Not trust, not yet, but not ready to run either. They never spoke again that night. They didn't need to. Morning crept in pale grey through cabin cracks. Adam stepped outside first, rolling stiffness from his hands while cold air settled on his shoulders. He scanned the yard from habit, fence lines, henhouse door, trough water, all in place, only dust drifting from the night breeze. She sat near the ashes, legs folded beneath her, back straight despite little sleep. Her eyes held redness from staying alert. When she noticed him looking, she lifted her chin in quiet acknowledgement. Adam nudged the ashes with a stick, then brought out 2 tin plates, bread and beans, no ceremony. He set one beside her. Hunger won over caution. As she ate, he noticed bruising along her forearm, scuffed knees, dirt ground into the seams of her dress. She moved like every motion had to be chosen first. He wondered how far she'd walked. What kind of danger pushed someone to cross open land alone? When he finally asked her name, she paused mid-bite, eyes dropping to the ground while she decided. Offering a name meant giving away a piece of herself. After a moment, she spoke. Nayeli, he nodded once. Adam Mercer. No handshake. Just 2 truths set in the open air. Later, he headed to the barn to check hinges and loose boards. She followed at a distance, watching how he worked, steady, practical, never rushed. Dust floated in morning light between the beams. He straightened a bent nail, tightened a screw. She reached out to touch a saddle strap he'd repaired, fingers tracing careful stitching. He noticed and handed her a cloth to wipe dust away. The gesture was practical, not patronizing. She accepted it. While they worked, her mind drifted back to the camp she'd left. Leadership disputes turned violent. No family there, no allies willing to step in. Leaving had been the only way to stay alive. She didn't say any of this yet, but the weight of it lived in the way she moved. Outside, wind pushed dust across the yard. Adam checked the horses' hooves while she kept her distance, so the animal wouldn't feel crowded. "Where are you headed?" he asked evenly. She took time before answering. "I don't know. Just away from where I was." He accepted that. No pressure, no demand for details. They walked the boundary fence together, the land stretching wide, dry soil, scattered sage, a wind-shaped ridge in the distance. She scanned constantly out of habit. Old survival instincts didn't fade easy. At the far corner, a fence post leaned badly. Adam knelt to inspect it. She crouched beside him, fingers tracing a fresh crack. "Happened last night," she said softly. Wind was strong. He glanced at her, surprised by the reed. She held the post steady while he tightened wire. No instructions needed. They worked like people who understood labor, if not each other. When they finished, her hand drifted to the ring now tied on a leather cord at her neck. Relief had settled deeper overnight. She'd lost nearly everything once. This she refused to lose again. They walked back toward the yard, dust rising around their boots, the morning stretching open ahead of them. By late afternoon, the wind had softened, carrying the dry scent of sage across the ranch. Nayeli stood near the fence line, watching the horizon like someone expecting the past to come riding back. Adam noticed the tension in her shoulders before he heard the distant hoofbeats. Two riders appeared as dark shapes against the fading sun. Nayeli's hand flew to the ring at her chest. Her breathing changed, shallow, tight. "From the camp," she said quietly. "They don't want me leaving. Not with what I know." Adam didn't ask what that meant. He just stepped beside her, calm as still water, rifle resting loose in his grip but not raised. The riders slowed when they saw they weren't facing a frightened woman alone. Words were shouted, carried thin by the wind, threats wrapped in pride. Nayeli's voice shook at first, then steadied as she answered back in her own tongue. She wasn't asking permission anymore. She was choosing her life. After a long, heavy moment, the riders turned away, dust trailing behind them, like ghosts losing interest. Silence returned to the valley. Nayeli let out a breath she'd been holding for days. Adam tipped his hat toward the open land. "You can stay," he said simply. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel like something chasing her, but something waiting.